Minnesota Today is supported by Granite Partners, over 20 years of growing Minnesota-based companies that source and sell around the world. Granite Partners, growing companies, enhancing communities. You can learn more at granite.com.
This is Minnesota Today for Friday, January 31st. I'm Emily Reese. Here's what's happening in Minnesota. As the impasse in the Minnesota House drags on, Republicans say they'll up the pressure on Democrats who have so far boycotted the session. Democrats have not shown up to the session yet because of a disagreement over power sharing. Republicans have gone to court, and they'll also move ahead with another action. That's in the form of recall petitions for DFL members who have been absent. State Republican Party Chair Alex Plekish says those petitions could soon start rolling. Voter signatures must be collected first.
We'll get the activists out throughout the state that we know and start the drive for a recall petition for each of those seats.
The petitions are just one step in a lengthy process that would take many months to resolve, far beyond the end of this legislative session. Democrats say they're doing work in their districts, even though they're avoiding the Capitol. It's shaping up to be a snowy weekend across the northern half of Minnesota, especially along the North Shore. A winter storm warning is in effect from tomorrow morning through early Sunday for Two Harbors, Silver Bay, and Grand Marais, where southeast winds off Lake Superior may enhance the snowfall. Lesser totals are expected to the south and west. NPR meteorologist Sven Sundgaard has a rundown of the expected snowfall.
6 to 9 inches of new snow, Grand Marais, 4 to 7 Duluth, 2 to 5 inches for the Iron Range cities, and then less as you go from Thief River Falls through Bemidji, St. Cloud, probably 1 to 2, and probably an inch or less in the Twin Cities.
The snow may mix with rain at times in central Minnesota. Sven says a couple of weather systems early next week may bring light snow to the region, possibly 1 to 3 inches for the Twin Cities and St. Cloud. Charges have been filed after a high school basketball player was assaulted during a game in the Twin Cities earlier this week. It happened Tuesday at Robbinsdale Cooper High School during a game against Fridley. Authorities say several people entered the gym and targeted a 17-year-old Fridley player on the bench. The victim was punched and hit on the head with a tire iron. It took 6 staples to close the laceration. The suspects fled, and 5 people, 3 adults, 2 juveniles, were arrested following a short vehicle pursuit. The adults, ages 18 and 19, are charged with second-degree assault and riot. The charges don't outline a possible motive. Police said the incident was not random. The annual City of Lakes Lopet Winter Festival takes place this weekend at Theodore Wirth Park in Minneapolis. Devin Sundquist is one of the organizers of the event.
We've been incredibly lucky that we make our own snow in Theodore Wirth Park. So we've got over 7 kilometers of trail that's been open since Thanksgiving. So we'll have over 2,000 participants, and it's looking like it's going to be a really great event.
The Lopet Foundation puts on the Lopet Winter Festival. Next weekend is the group's Luminary Lopet. Organizers hope they can have that candlelight event on the ice of Lake of the Isles. It's been on the ground the last 2 years because of poor ice conditions. In sports, the Minnesota Wild won another road game last night. They beat the Montreal Canadiens 4-0. Goalie Marc-Andre Fleury posted the 76th shutout of his storied career. Fleury, he's 40. He plans to retire after this season. Last night's game may have been his last in front of his home province fans. They paid tribute to the future Hall of Famer with standing ovations and chants of his name there in Montreal. Really lovely tribute to him. The Wild play in Ottawa tomorrow night. Timberwolves extended a winning streak to 5 games last night. They beat the Utah Jazz 138-113. Anthony Edwards scored 36 points. He's headed to his 3rd straight All-Star game. That's next month. The Wolves hit 61% of their shots. They're back home for a game against the Washington Wizards tomorrow night. Gopher women's basketball team lost to 4th-ranked USC last night. The Minnesota Frost play the Charge in Ottawa tonight. Gopher men's basketball team hosts Washington tomorrow. Your forecast for Minnesota tonight. Cloudy, lows from 0 to 5 below in the northeast. Low to mid-20s in the south. Tomorrow, winter storm warning for the North Shore, winter weather advisory for the Arrowhead. Snow, then, for the northern 2/3 of the state. Highs low 20s to the upper 40s. That's it for Minnesota Today. Thanks for listening. You'll have a new update on Monday morning. And as always, I hope you have a great weekend.
It's Friday, the final day of January, the 31st. I'm Phil Picardi with Minnesota Today. Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party Chair Ken Martin is viewed as one of the top contenders to lead the National Democratic Party, and he will face a key test tomorrow. Dana Ferguson reports.
Ken Martin is touting his 14-year tenure running the Minnesota DFL and preventing a loss in a statewide election in that time frame. He faces 7 opponents. Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler is viewed by many as his biggest competition. The winner will replace current Democratic Chair Jamie Harrison in the internal party election. The choice comes after a bruising presidential election and as Democrats hold minorities in both chambers of Congress. I'm Dana Ferguson in National Harbor, Maryland.
In Minnesota, Republicans have been unable to conduct business in the Minnesota House during a DFL boycott of the legislative session. And yesterday, they filed a lawsuit with the Minnesota Supreme Court seeking to move a stalled session forward. Clay Masters has more.
All week, Secretary of State Steve Simon has come into the House chamber, taken a roll, and found there are not enough members present because Democrats are still boycotting. He gavels out and does not recognize Republican Representative Harry Niska.
Today we initiated legal action against Secretary Simon in the Minnesota Supreme Court, asking the Minnesota Supreme Court to tell him that he is exceeding his authority as an executive branch official, as a ceremonial presiding officer, by not recognizing those of us who are here.
Niska has sought to be recognized to introduce a resolution to cut pay for Democrats who have not been showing up to the State House. Democrats are holding out until Republicans agree to seat all of their members. I'm Clay Masters at the Capitol.
The Minneapolis City Council has voted to start charging fees for off-duty police work. Officers are allowed to use city gear to work private security jobs when they are off-duty. Critics say that's wear and tear on the city equipment, and it lets officers work without the oversight they typically have within the department. Flight attendants for Minneapolis-based Sun Country say they have reached a tentative agreement for a new contract averting a potential strike. Teamsters Local 120 says the new contract covers more than 700 flight attendants and includes increased wages and increased company contributions to retirement plans. The deal needs to be ratified by union members. The Minnesota figure skating community is in shock after a Washington, D.C. plane crash Wednesday carrying members of the U.S. figure skating team. There were no survivors when a helicopter and a plane collided. Minnesota figure skater Ren Warren Jacobson says it's a close-knit community.
I'm looking on social media and seeing Instagram stories and posts from kids who were on the flight, and just a few hours ago they were talking about how amazing their experience at the camp was. There was a story of a boy who posted a picture out the plane window about to take off on that flight, and it's just really, really jarring.
The flight from Wichita, Kansas to Washington included 60 passengers and 4 crew members. 3 soldiers were on board the Army helicopter that collided with the plane. 30 top street snowboarders flip, slide, and corkscrew down the steps of the Minnesota State Capitol building this weekend. They will be competing in the Red Bull Heavy Metal competition. It's the second year in a row riders will have very little snow on which to compete. Organizers are bringing in bags of snow from Buck Hill Ski Resort. The annual City of Lakes Lopet Winter Festival takes place this weekend at Theodore Wirth Park in Minneapolis. Organizers make their own snow for the event, which features 19 different events and 2,000 participants. In sports, the Wild won another road game last night, beating the Montreal Canadiens 4-0. Goalie Marc-Andre Fleury posted the 76th shutout of his storied career. Fleury, at 40, plans to retire after this season, and last night's game may have been his last in front of his home province fans. They paid tribute to the future Hall of Famer with standing ovations and chants of his name. The Wild play in Ottawa tomorrow night. The Timberwolves extended a winning streak to 5 games last night. They beat the Utah Jazz 138-113. Anthony Edwards scored 36 points. The Wolves return home for a game against the Washington Wizards tomorrow night. And the Gopher women's basketball team lost to 4th-ranked USC last night 82-69. In the weather forecast, mostly sunny skies today, not quite as warm. High temperatures between 15 and 21 degrees in the north. Highs upper 30s to mid 40s in the south. That is Minnesota Today. Emily has the Friday afternoon update a little later. Talk to you in February.
This is Minnesota Today for Friday, January 31st. I'm Emily Reese. Here's what's happening in Minnesota. As the impasse in the Minnesota House drags on, Republicans say they'll up the pressure on Democrats who have so far